It's true! We are going to calculate pi on the moon. I'm so excited. I get to be an astronaut. I'm here in space to... I'm not here in space, so I gotta be excited. But you can see why I'm so excited. We are actually going to calculate pi on the moon, but I'm not actually allowed to go. I mean, no one is. We're sending a rover. We're going to have a lunar rover on the surface of the moon calculating pi. So excited. Here's how it happened. There's a company called Astrobotic who make robots for space. And would you believe a space robotics company have a few stand-up mass fans kicking around, and they're working on a new, well, both a lunar lander, they're sending Griffin 1, and it's got a lunar rover, Cube Rover 1. And this will be the biggest lunar lander on the moon since the Apollo missions. It's a big deal, and lots of other large space organizations that I'm not allowed to name yet are involved, but Astrobotic are providing the actual, like the lander and the rover, and they realized they're not going to be using all of the compute power on the rover all of the time. Now, obviously, commercial people or serious scientists would pay a lot of money. I mean, it's very expensive to get to the moon, to use that spare compute time to do something serious. But Astrobotic thought, no, they want to do something ridiculous with it. And they figured, who better to go to than this guy? So when they contacted me and said, do I have any ideas for what we could do with some compute power on a rover, I said, yes, I want to be the first person to calculate pi on the moon. By which I mean, we're going to be. I will explain how you can get involved later in the video. You'll get to send your name to the moon. You'll get your own value of lunar pi. This is also ridiculous. But first of all, we have to answer the question, how are we going to do it? How can you use a lunar rover to calculate pi? And we all know the correct answer. I mean, there's only one correct answer, and that's to get the lunar rover, drive it in a small circle and measure how far it goes, drive it across the middle of the circle, divide one by the other, and get lunar pi. And let me just check. I got the contract here with what I'm allowed to do with the rover. Let's see if we're allowed to drive it around. Of course we're not allowed to drive it around. That's ridiculous. It's doing like serious science. It's doing a lot of experiments that involve the rover driving around, taking photos, that kind of stuff. We are not allowed to impact the rover at all. Our code has to run in its own little section. We can't drive it around. We can't alter what it's doing. But we can access the sensors. But here's the thing. I was adamant, if we're going to calculate lunar pi, the first ever calculation of pi on the moon, it should involve the moon. Because we could just get an equation for pi, put it on the rover, launch that to the moon, then calculate pi. But that's just a glorified server on the moon. That's still so ridiculous though. But the thing is, right, I want to use the moon. And if we can't drive the rover around, next best option, we can use the environment on the moon, everything around Cube Rover, as a source of randomness. So here's the plan. Whenever Cube Rover 1 has some downtime, the main system is going to contact our little chunk of code, tell it to activate, it will fire up, start bringing in the data from all the sensors that are monitoring the lunar environment around the rover, use those as a source of randomness, and we get a couple seconds. We get one loop through the code to get as many random numbers as we can, use them all to calculate pi, and then go back into a resting state. Well, I was calling it a loop because in programming senses that made sense, but it's not a very exciting name. I want a better name. I'm going to call each time it runs a lunar observation of pi. So each loop, we have a couple seconds to get as many random numbers in as we can, run the cycle as many times as we can, calculate one little value of lunar pi, and then we have a kind of global lunar running total of pi. And after each loop, it's going to send back the details of that lunar observation of pi, as well as the running total. And at the end of the mission, now the engineers, they can't give me an exact figure. When I asked how many loops we're going to get, in their words, we're going to get thousands, not hundreds. So I don't know how many random numbers we're going to go through, but I do know at the end of it, we'll have a value for pi. The next question is, how can you use random numbers to get pi. Imagine using the lunar randomness to throw darts at a circular dartboard. One random number would give us the horizontal coordinate, and a second random number would give us the vertical coordinate. And as long as they're both perfectly even distributions of random numbers, the probability of the dart landing anywhere inside this square is equally likely everywhere. And the area of the circular dartboard, if it's got a radius of 1, is just pi. Area of a circle, pi r squared. And the area of the box is just, well, it's 2 by 2, so it's 4. So the probability one of our darts is inside the circle is pi on 4. We just got to keep track of loads of digital darts being thrown at the board. In reality, all we're doing is we're going to square both random numbers, add them, and see if the total is greater or less than 1. It's Pythagoras on the moon. And if we do enough of those, get the ratio, multiply it by 4, that's pi. But hang on a second. The moon's not a circle. The moon's a sphere. Surely it would be even more moony to use sets of 3 random numbers to throw darts at a spherical dartboard, which we could do. The volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed, so that's easy. Volume of 4/3. The surrounding cube, that's got a volume of 8. We've got a ratio again. Pythagoras works in 3D. Keep track of a bunch of them. Still get pi. But why not 4D? I mean, the volume of a 4-dimensional sphere is a half pi squared r to the 4, and the volume of the 4D box around it would be 16. The ratio still works though, sets of 4 random numbers. 5D, the volume of a 5D sphere is, bear with me here, 8/15 of pi squared times r to the 5 inside a 5D cube with volume 32. I mean, it's hard to visualize, but the math checks out. Which one are we going to choose? Now, I've done some simulations. It seems if you want to minimize your variance to make sure your mission is the maximum likelihood of being successful, after I modeled 1,000 missions in 2D, 97.8% of the time, if we get 1 million observations, we get pi rounded to 3.14. I don't know how many observations we're going to get, but I want to minimize my variance. That's my current plan. If you've got suggestions, let me know. I'm going to do some more working out because it also depends how the C code interacts, like in terms of efficiencies. But the point is, we can do it. We can take lunar randomness and turn it into a lunar value of pi. And now for the bad news. It turns out the lunar rover, little QB, can't run terrible Python code. I know, I'm as upset as you are. However, I can still write my code in terrible Python code, and then my brother, who's an actual software developer, will help me turn it into C, the language that the lunar rover actually uses. That then goes through a bunch of testing, will be loaded onto the rover in July. Sometime around the end of the year, Griffin Mission 1 will be launched. Really hope I get to watch that. There'll be updates. At some point after that, orbits are complicated, ends up on the moon. We have a number of days, unknown, driving around the lunar surface. We'll get a number of lunar observations of pi. We don't get any data back afterwards. After each loop, the rover will message back what happened in that loop. At the end of the mission, it just powers down. We don't get like a final data dump or anything. But because we'll get constant updates after every loop, at the end of it, we will be the first people to have calculated pi on the moon. And if you're thinking, what if someone else has done it already? Why? I mean, ironically, the value of pi will be in the code of QB. Man, that's beside the point. We're going to calculate it from scratch. That said, there is one other tiny issue. It's expensive. I mean, space is so expensive. And Astrobotic are being total legends. Like, they're letting me put a pi calculation payload, the MoonPi payload, onto their mission. Just phenomenal. However, there are going to be some extra costs. You can't just put some code on a major lunar mission that's doing important science for some big agencies without a lot of rigorous checks. There's going to be a bunch of extra engineer time to make sure my code isn't going to ruin the mission. And then the data fees. The data plan from the moon, so expensive. And we have to send it back after every loop because we want to make sure we don't lose any of our calculation. And while Astrobotic are giving me the place on the mission for no extra cost, they can't bill the cost to some other person on the mission. Like, we can't expect a different organization to pay for it, and they can't just like add it to their margin. So very reasonably, they've said, if I can come up with the additional $150,000, and those are Earth dollars, not moon dollars, which are a sixth of Earth dollars. If we can come up with $150,000, which is a lot, it's not a lot of money in terms of a space mission, but it's a lot of money in terms of money, we can do this. But it's okay. I have a plan. We're going to have a Kickstarter. Yep, we're going to Kickstarter a space mission to calculate pi on the moon. This is so ridiculous. But I figure $150,000 sounds like a lot, but what if 1,000 people all wanted to pay $150 to be a astronaut? That could work. And if you're thinking, Matt, what are the perks? And what are the other price points? Well, don't worry. Space Matt, it's got you covered. Yes, 1,000 of you can join me in being a Mastronaut. For your support, your name will be put onto a text file. That text file is going onto the rover before it launches, gets launched to the moon, gets driven around on the surface of the moon, and when your loop comes up, your name will be loaded into the memory of the rover. It will be part of the calculation to take as many observations as we can, that loop, and then the rover will message you. So it's going to send a message with your name, your personalized value of lunar pi, whatever we got from that loop, and it will tell you what the value was, like globally, I mean lunarly, across the whole experiment before your loop and then after your loop, so you can see what you're contributing. So when it happens, I will pass the message straight on to you, but once the mission is over, I will make a physical certificate confirming your involvement in the mission, that you're an astronaut, the message that came from the moon, your personal value of pi, I'll sign all of that, and you'll get a mission patch sent to you. I'm so excited about this mission. Please join me, be a astronaut. I know $150 is a lot of money, but I'd love to get you involved. Of course, I'll have some higher tiers if you want to be a co-PI. Such a good name. My wife works in space science, and I've always thought it's very funny when you've got a principal investigator, you get your co-PIs, which is co-pi. So I'm going to have, of course, some co-PIs. There will be 314 of them, each paying $314. For that, you can have 5 names. I'll send you 5 certificates, all to the same address, and 5 mission patches. I guess it's a more efficient way if you've got a family or a group of friends or a class or a club, you can be a mission co-PI. And for the absolute top tier, we're going to have 31 commanders. So you want to be a commander on the mission, that's $3,141, a lot of money. You get 100 names on the mission, 100 certificates, all signed by me for all 100 names, 100 patches, all going to the same address. I'm not seeing them all over the place. And if you don't want all of those 100 names, let me know, and I will fill those spots for free with school kids. Oh, and for the record, if you're hearing all these numbers and thinking they are impossibly large, I cannot afford that. Obviously, I want to get as many people involved as possible. So if you just want to be flight support crew and join the mission for $15, I'll put your name on the rover, goes in the same text document. You'll go to the moon. I can't guarantee you'll get to sponsor a loop. I will definitely email you a certificate after the mission confirming your involvement and that you are part of the support crew for this mission. You're part of the team. Hopefully, and I'll go through all the names in the order you sign up. If we can, you'll get your own loop. I'm desperately hoping I will get through every single name. It feels likely, but not guaranteed. So if you're just support crew, hopefully you'll get a loop. Can't guarantee it. If you do, that'll be in the certificate I email you, but you'll definitely get your name driven around on the lunar surface, and I'll definitely email you some kind of certificate. And finally, all the spaces that aren't used by people who are paying, I would love to get loads of students involved. If you're a teacher and you want some of your students to have their name on the mission, we can do that. Here's what we're going to do. There'll be a separate site. You need to have a teacher email address from a proper school. You can nominate a number of students, and they'll have to earn their place by proving that they've calculated pi by hand. Details below. I think it's going to be great. Okay, here are the rules. So I've set the target to $100,000, which is not the whole amount, because if we get within 50K, I mean, I'll call in some favors. I'll be real nice to some sponsors. I don't know, I'll max out a credit card, whatever I got to do. I'm calculating pie on the moon if it's at all plausible. That's the minimum. However, 150,000, that's our costs covered. If we make any more than that, well, same rules as last time. If we make more money than we need for the project, I promise I will use it on another ridiculous maths project. I'll keep taking your money if you want to keep supporting the project, but I might have to use it on something else. I mean, the next chunk I will use on all of my actual costs, because the whole thing's going to cost me a bunch of money too, and like posting certificates, all that jazz. The next bit I might pay myself. Novel, I know. If we get that far, and then above that, other ridiculous projects. Oh, and there are some risks. My fellow mastronauts, this is not without risk. So, landing on the moon, very difficult. Very expensive. And if we launch the rocket, and I don't know, it blows up, or it misses the moon, or something doesn't deploy, and a previous mission like this didn't make it to the surface of the moon, things can go wrong. And if we don't get onto the surface of the moon, we will have already spent the money. So, officially, I'm very sorry, no refunds. You'll still get a certificate, you'll still get your mission patch, and I'll be eternally grateful. And if I can refund some or all of the money, I will. But given there's a lot of upfront costs, I've just got to say, you're taking as much risk as me. I mean, maybe I'll have enough money to try again. I don't know. All I'm saying is I'll do my absolute best, but officially, no refunds. But astronauts, you'll have a certificate saying we gave it a go and you were involved, and you get the mission patch. So that's the whole plan. We're going to calculate pi on the moon every time I say it. We're going to calculate pi on the moon, and you can be involved. Your name can go to the moon, drive around on the moon's surface, not that we're allowed to control the rover, and hopefully everyone who supports at every level will get their own loop, their own lunar observation of pi, your value of pi. And if you're an astronaut, imagine wearing that patch, put that certificate up in your office. And along the way, I'll talk about all the engineering, the maths, the science, everything behind the mission. I haven't even gone near the science they're doing as part of the mission, because I'm contractually not allowed to yet. But, what a ride. And you get to come with me. Both the journey of doing this, and you get to come with me to the moon. Fun fact, this is the first contract I've ever signed where the other party has promised to, and I quote, make reasonable efforts to launch and land on the moon. So that's the plan. Please get involved. I can't believe we're going to calculate pi on the moon. It's so ridiculous, but so great. Share this video with other people. Send the Kickstarter to anyone who you think can afford it and can fund this. Teachers, let me know if you want to get some students involved. Oh, I'm so excited. And thank you, of course, for watching this video. And for those of you following my broken hand, this is the first day I've had the splint thing off. I don't know if you can tell this on camera. In person, it's pretty obvious. I've got like an inverse tan. This arm is substantially less tanned than this one. So first day out in the daylight. You know what? I reckon we can calculate pi with an inverse tan. Zero of this. Such a dumb joke. All right. See you in space.